Just like anyone else my age, I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man. A lot of my earliest memories are linked to the character. I remember my first birthday I can remember, I think I was 4 years old. I dressed up as Spider-Man for nursery. I also used to watch the 90s Spider-Man cartoon religiously. My first video game console was the PlayStation 1, which my dad got me so I could play the Spider-Man game on PS1. Fantastic game, might do a video on that one day. But yeah, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, to put it simply. And it wasn't until I was about 18 that I started reading the comics. I started with the Ultimate line of Spider-Man, just because that was a lot easier to read than the 800 issues at the time that was the Amazing Spider-Man. But in recent years, I've tried to get through the Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm currently at about issue 270. I'm making some good progress these days, but it's probably going to be another year until I finish the whole thing. But one thing I always like is just looking at the covers. I think the covers are great. They're probably like my favourite part of reading. You know, you get some cool art, you can see what the issue's about, and it's quite fun to look at the ones that are really, really good, and then compare to the ones that are like quite bad. So I thought that I would do a video where I look at issues 1 to 899 and review the covers. And I thought this would be a video that probably is like 2.5 hours long, maybe longer. I've just spent today recording this. I think this is going to come out around like 45 minutes roughly. But I had the motivation today to do the first 100, so that's what I did. I looked at every cover and I just sort of talked about them, and I've put that into a video. So if you want to look at all 1 to 100 covers of The Amazing Spider-Man, this is the video for you. I'm going to be giving some critique, talking about what I like, what I don't, and yeah, I think it might be a fun time. Now, I just want to preface this before we get started. 1. I am not an artist. In fact, I'm a very, very bad artist. Here's an example of some of my work. Number 2. I do not have an understanding of how they used to really make these covers back in the day. I know they drew it and like inked it, but like I don't know their process, so at times I might be talking about stuff that makes absolutely no sense, and you might be like, well, you've done it. I don't care. It's my video. It's meant to be very loosey-goosey, so try not to think about it too much. And thirdly, I have a somewhat good understanding of composition and colour. I'm not going to say I'm like a master artist, as I've mentioned previously, but I would like to think I have a slight understanding. So just keep that in mind before I start talking about all these issues. And if you're a big Spider-Man fan and you're watching this video and I get a detail wrong, or I, God forbid, talk poorly about one of your favourite issue covers, I am very, very sorry. But without further ado, let's get into the video. First up, we have issue number 1, and I quite like this cover. I think Spider-Man looks great. I've always really liked the web armpits. I think the use of the Fantastic Four is pretty good. You know, the Human Torch flying around, things looking pretty angry. I like the subtitle at the bottom about the extra story, the Chameleon Strikes. I've never been a huge fan of the Chameleon. I think he's a bit overrated, but that story title makes him sound a lot more interesting. Overall, I'd probably give this cover a solid 8 out of 10. Issue number 2, another strong cover. I really like the Vulture, he's one of my favourites, so a bit biased. I think Spider-Man looks great as he's sort of falling down to the streets of New York. I think the use of just the red for the sky and the grey cityscape looks pretty good. I'm not huge on when the covers have small like comic panels on top of art already. I think it would look better if it was just the Vulture. Although the little piece of art in the comic panel is pretty good, I guess, and you know, the Tinkerer, I think he's a bit underrated. So, saying all that, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. Issue number 3, I'm going to say straight off the bat, 10 out of 10. I think this looks fantastic. I love how Dr. Octopus is holding up Spider-Man, but you can't actually see him. He's in the shadows. I think Spider-Man looks great as always. His web armpits are maybe a bit massive, but I don't really mind that. And I love the use of the American's most exciting superhero and Doc Ock with his "What help with Spider-Man?" And then you've got the question mark, anything that lives defeat the mighty Dr. Octopus. And then another thing in the bottom left corner, it's packed, but it just works so well. If I saw that on a comic stall, I'd buy that without hesitation. I'm not a huge fan of issue number 4. I think it does a great job of introducing Sandman to the readers, but I just don't like this 4-panel design on the front cover. I just don't think it's very interesting, and I think you could probably do the same with just one large spread, which is how I think covers should look. Nothing like objective about that is very much subjective, but it's just how I feel. Overall, I'd probably give this one a 5 out of 10. It's fine. Issue number 5 I think is mostly good. I think Spider-Man looks good. I like how his web snap, he's sort of falling into the chaos, but Doctor Doom just does not look great. The fact you can see just in between his mask and hood is a little bit distracting, and his mask in general just looks a bit goofy. I don't think it's necessarily the best piece of art, so that sort of lets this one down. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Issue number 6 I really like. I think it's quite visually different than what we've seen so far. I like the fact that Spider-Man's sort of falling back, but he's got the webs to hold him up. Half man, half reptile, the lizard. Great little introduction, but I'm not huge on the lizard's early design. I really don't like his full purple coat and trousers here. I much prefer when he's got the white lab coat. So because of that reason, I'm probably going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Issue number 7, I really like. I think it's a solid issue. I haven't got loads to say, you know. Spider-Man swinging in to fight the Vulture. Vulture looks great. I think a good note is the here is Spider-Man as you like him. Fighting, joking, daring. I think that's a nice touch, but overall not loads to say on this one. I'd give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. Issue number 8, this is the first one I can say I do not like. I don't like the bright yellow, I don't like the 2 circles with the little bits of action in them. I think the living brain as a robot looks pretty naff. The boxing with Flash Thompson would be more interesting. I think that should have been the whole cover, and I think it's just generally a bit cluttered. You've got the Human Torch, you've got 2 panels, you've got Spider-Man, you've got a special tribute to teenagers issue. I can't remember why that's a tribute to teenagers, but you didn't need that on the cover, especially not there. Overall, I would give this one a 2 out of 10. Issue number 9 is a slight improvement, but I'm still not a huge fan of it. I don't like the fact it's split in 2. I think they should have either gone with the top panel or the bottom panel. I think the bottom panel would have been a lot better, Electro walking away, but I guess then you wouldn't see his powers, so maybe that's what they were going for. But I just don't like that split. But because both pieces of art are quite good and it does a good job of introducing Electro, I'm still going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Issue number 10 is just boring. Background's boring, the Enforcers look boring and they're boring villains. And Spider-Man looks fine, but it's just, there's nothing about this that jumps out and makes me want to buy it. For that reason, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. Issue 11 is definitely an improvement over the last few issues we've seen. It's got a nice background, Doc Ock looks great, Spider-Man looks great. It's not particularly the most exciting cover, but I think it's definitely an improvement on what we've just seen. Overall, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. Issue number 12 is very close to being perfect. Not only do I really like this story, but it's a great cover. You know, Doc Ock holding Spider-Man, unmasking him for Betty Brant and J. Jonah Jameson to see. It looks great and it's very attention grabbing. I would definitely pick this up. I just don't like this huge yellow background. I think it's so distracting and really garish. So for that reason, I'm going to be giving it an 8.5. Issue 13 is another cover that's nearly perfect. If it was just the top piece of art, it would be a 10 out of 10 without a doubt. I love that piece of art with Mysterio standing there. He's another favourite of mine. I think this does a great job of introducing him and grabbing the reader's attention. It's just these 2 panels at the bottom. While they are interesting developments for Spider-Man, I don't think you need them on the cover. Just have that top piece of art and you'd have a 10 out of 10. However, because it does have those bottom bits, I'm going to give this one a 8 out of 10. Issue 14 is another cover that introduced a long-standing Spider-Man villain, that being the Green Goblin. And while this issue has a lot of stuff that I normally wouldn't like, such as the small insert at the bottom right for the Hulk, and the Enforcers in the background, which I think is just a bit cluttered, I think this is really well composed, and I think it does a really good job of sort of grabbing your attention and then pulling you in further with all the little details. So for that reason, I think I'm going to give this one a 8.5 out of 10. Issue 15 is another really strong cover. I think it has a good use of colour, there's not too much of it. Spider-Man looks great, all tangled up, and Craven's looking very intimidating as he's coming for him. And I also think the special guest star bit at the bottom, it's small, it's out of the way, and it's not too distracting. I'm going to give this one a solid 9 out of 10. Issue 16, I'm not a huge fan of. I know it's not really fair to say because that is how he's designed, but I just don't like the look of that Daredevil. I think he looks stupid. The emblem on the back of Spider-Man also just looks wrong, and the Ringmaster as a villain is just boring. And at the bottom it says, warning, if you don't say this is one of the greatest issues you've ever read, we may never talk to you again. Now, I never talked to Marvel, but that is not one of the best issues. I remember that one being boring, and I read that like 2 years ago. So this cover, I'm being a bit harsh on, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Issue 17 is just a good cover. I haven't got loads to say about it. I think you can just look at it and go, yeah, that's a good cover. I think it's quite well composed. I like how there's a lot of the supporting cast down below. The Human Torch is smiling, which is a little bit weird. I can't remember if he's been brainwashed. He might have been. I like the Green Goblin there. I think he looks very cool. Yeah, just a good cover. I'm going to give that one a solid 8 out of 10. Issue 18, another strong issue. I like this one a lot. The end of Spider-Man, very dramatic, grabs your attention. And they've split the cover in half, which I don't normally like, but they've done it in a way that makes sense. And I think this looks really good, you know, Spider-Man's hiding away while Sandman's looking for him. Does a good job of showing Sandman's powers in a single image. Yeah, this is good. I would give this one a 9.5 out of 10. Issue 19 is a cover I feel quite torn on. I think it's quite an iconic cover, at least I'm pretty sure it is. I think people like this one a lot, and I do really like Spidey strikes back as he swings through a web. It's just these three images of the Human Torch, the Sandman, and the Enforcers. I don't like the Enforcers, they're boring. Every issue with them is boring. Whenever I see them, it makes me sad. So because of that, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. We are now a fifth of the way through with issue 20, and I like this cover. I don't think it's the best, but I think it does a pretty good job. I like the fact that Scorpion's holding up Spider-Man, he's trying to shoot a web, but he's hit it with his tail. It's just the Scorpion's early design I've never been a huge fan of, and I think that massive sort of greenish skyline is a little bit dull. But for the most part, I think this is pretty good. I think I'd give this a 7 out of 10. Issue 21, this is pretty good. I think that the Human Torch looks great. I like how Spider-Man's sort of swinging up. You've also got the Beetle in the background, but you can't quite see who he is. Pretty good. I think Spider-Man's like groin area looks a bit odd, and it is sort of like the centre of the page, or sort of where you look first. But for the most part, it's pretty good. So I'm going to give this one like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. Issue 22 is pretty good. I really like the use of the spider symbol and the silhouette of Spider-Man sort of standing over the villains, but the clown and his masters of menace. I don't remember reading this issue, but like, I think there's a reason those guys never come back. But that's not really fair to judge the cover for that, so I'm still going to give this one like an 8 out of 10. Issue 23, I love. I think this is one of the best covers we've seen so far. I think the white background really helps to make the Green Goblin and Spider-Man stand out and pop out from the page. I love how the Green Goblin's pulling on his web, which has got him all tangled, caught on his spider's web. And I love the title for it. I think I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. It's really simple, but it's really effective. Easily one of my favourites. Issue 24, another banger. This is a fantastic issue cover. I love the Spider-Man goes mad with the room sort of upside down. He's walking through a door that's led to a wall. You've got Sandman and Vulture appearing as visions. He's got his head in his hands. I think this is just a great cover. It immediately shows you what the story's going to be about. Spider-Man's gone mad. And I think I do remember this one is pretty good. So yeah, I'm going to give this one another 10 out of 10. Issue 25, we're now a quarter of the way through. Sadly, we've got the return of the yellow background, which I just don't like. I think it's so distracting and garish. But everything else I really like. I think J. Jonah Jameson has a great little evil smile on his face. I love how the Spider Slayer's completely tangled up Spider-Man as he's trying to web shoot him. Because of the yellow background, I can't give it a 10 out of 10. So I'm going to give this one like an 8.5/9 out of 10. Issue 26, this is pretty good. This is very standard. I quite like it. I think it's well composed. I like the use of colour. I don't think it's necessarily the most exciting cover. It's not going to grab your attention necessarily. But I think it's good. I think I'd give this one a solid 7 out of 10. Issue 27 I think is a very strong cover. I love the fact that Spider-Man's surrounded by all these crooks, he's up in chains, he's sort of pushing back and forth to get away from him. You've got the Green Goblin sort of sitting above watching the chaos. I do think it's just missing something, I'm not quite sure what it is. It might be the colour, you know, having the yellow on the floor and the blue in the sky, but that does sort of work, so I can't quite put my finger on it. So for that reason, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Issue 28, easily a 10 out of 10. Cloaked in darkness, Spidey faces the mystifying menace of the Molten Man. Fantastic. I love the way that Spider-Man looks in this, and I think it does a really good job of making you interested in who Molten Man is. He's not the greatest Spider-Man villain, but this cover makes it look like he is. You've also got, also in this landmark issue, you won't want to miss Peter Parker's graduation. Just small enough in the corner that once you've looked at the cover you'll see it. So yeah, this is an easy 10 out of 10 for me. Issue 29, it's safe to say that Steve Ditko is on a complete hot streak. Another banger cover. I love this one. Like I said before, I'm not huge on the Scorpion design, but I think the actual cover itself here is just so good. Spider-Man in the water being thrashed around by Scorpion, never step on a Scorpion. Just fantastic. Another easy 10 out of 10. Issue 30 may not be as strong as some of the previous issues, but I still like this one a lot. I think the use of scale is really interesting. It's quite unique for the covers at this point. You get a good idea of the scale of the action. And the lack of colour works really well with the yellow light sort of shooting up at Spider-Man. I wouldn't give this one a 10 out of 10. I'd probably give this one a 8 out of 10. Issue 31's cover is one I have mixed feelings on. I don't like the massive use of red, and I don't like how Spider-Man's mask looks in the middle, but I think it is quite smart how they use the white spider symbol to sort of, in between the legs, show different panels of action. It's quite interesting, but I just don't love it like everyone else does, so I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. I really like issue 32. I think it has a great little action scene on it with Spider-Man kicking the wall down and throwing the crooks around. You've got Tipped Calm, the guy running for it. And you've got a little bit of Aunt May in the corner in a hospital bed, as she always is. And the man on a rampage just fills that last little gap quite nicely. I don't know if I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I'm going to go over 9 out of 10 just because I think the symbol on Spider-Man's back looks a little bit odd. Issue 33, an easy 10 out of 10. This is a fantastic cover. All you have on it is The Amazing Spider-Man, the final chapter. There's no distractions with text about what else is going on in the issue. All you need to see is Spider-Man stuck under rubble and water filling up. And I also like how this is taken directly from the climax of this issue. It's a very iconic Spider-Man moment. It was sort of recreated in Spider-Man Homecoming. This is a fantastic issue cover. Probably my favourite so far, and it might be my favourite out of all 100 issues we're going to look at today. So yeah, easy 10 out of 10. Issue 34 is pretty good. I think it does the job. I like how Kraven's jumping down onto Spider-Man. He's just sort of noticed him. It just feels like it's lacking a lot of colour. I think all it needed was a little bit of colour in the background and maybe a little bit more detail on the buildings. But it just looks a little bit dull in my opinion, a little bit out of place. So I'm only going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Issue 35 is fine. I don't love it. I think it's a bit disappointing considering the last Molten Man issue is one I gave 10 out of 10, and I don't think this uses the darkness as well. I don't like the spider symbol being white. Spider-Man looks like he's being coloured wrong, and I think the background's just really dull. It's just really flat. So yeah, overall I'm only going to give this one like a 5 out of 10. Just passable. Issue 36 I think is pretty good. I think the white background works here because it helps Spider-Man pop and the Meteor, as he's called. I also love the Spideys you like him, in college, in trouble, in action, action, action. And it is a good action scene that's on the cover. So yeah, I would definitely pick this up if I saw it. So I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Issue 37, I'm not a huge fan of this one. I don't like the split down the middle. Once upon a time there was a robot. He looks like a robot on the right, but you can't really tell it's the robot on the left, and I'm pretty sure that is from memory. But the action scenes are pretty good and well drawn, and I do quite like the robot master at the top there. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but the black background against the Spider-Man logo always does look pretty good. So even though I don't like it loads, I am going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Issue 38, if it was just the top piece of art with maybe a bit more of a detailed background, this could easily be a 10 out of 10. I think it just looks great, Spider-Man jumping in with a punch. But I don't like the bottom bits. I think they're just a bit pointless. I know that Spider-Man does all that stuff. I don't need it on the cover. I know that is subjective, but like, a cover to me should be like one big piece of art. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10 because I think it is still good. I just wish they hadn't gone that direction with it. Issue 39, a quite interesting and important cover because Steve Ditko had left The Amazing Spider-Man behind and John Romita had taken over as the artist, and I think for his first cover, this is fantastic. I'd give this an easy 10 out of 10. I really like this one. Green Goblin looks very menacing. Spider-Man's unmasked and being pulled through the streets. I would easily pick this up if I was back in the 1960s when this came out. Spidey and the Green Goblin both unmasked. Fantastic. Yeah, easy 10 out of 10. Another easy 10 out of 10 from John. I think I like this one even more. This is fantastic. Spider-Man's standing over Green Goblin. You know he's about to unmask him. Spidey saves the day. The end of the Green Goblin. The fire in the background. I'd easily pick this up once again. 10 out of 10 without a doubt. Issue 41 and John is on a hat trick. I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10 again. I'm not in love with this early Rhino design, but I'm willing to look past it just because how great this cover is. Spider-Man on the floor, reaching out as Rhino barges past him, going through the wall. It's just very exciting. I like this one a lot, so that's why I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Issue 42, another fantastic issue. I think this one's really good. It just grabs the attention really quickly. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 though, and that's for one reason. Issue 42 is when they introduced Mary Jane Watson, and they had been building up to that for ages. So I think it's quite weird they don't have it on the cover, and I don't remember this character. And granted, I read this about 2 years ago, but I couldn't tell you who he is. So for that reason, I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Issue 43, this is fantastic. This actually could be my second favourite issue after issue 33. Rhino on a rampage with Spider-Man being thrown around as he grabs onto his horn with everyone watching in the background. This is fantastic. The colour is amazing. I'm just smiling looking at it. I really like this one. I'd like to have this one framed. This is great. Easy 10 out of 10. Issue 44. I know I keep giving 10 out of 10s at this point, but John just gets it. This is another fantastic cover. Great bit of action. The Lizard has got his proper attire on, you know, he's got the white lab coat of the purple jeans. I'm not huge on the Lizard's face, but that's just sort of how he looked back then. Where Crawls the Lizard is a fantastic title. So yeah, another 10 out of 10. Issue 45, after a real hot streak, we've got to one that I'm not too fond on, and it's because of that yellow background. I just don't think it suits it. I don't like it. Maybe it's used because it pops well with Spider-Man, but I just find it so horrible to look at. Other than that though, it's pretty good. I like the web usage on the yellow, that's pretty good. So even though it's got the yellow background, 8 out of 10. Issue 46, I do like this cover a lot. I think it's a good piece of action, does a good job of introducing the Shocker. Shocker's probably like, maybe like my second or third favourite Spider-Man villain. I think he's a bit underrated. I'm looking forward to the day where he gets a proper big story, but I think this is a pretty good cover. My only gripe would be it's very grey on the background. I'd maybe add a little bit more colour. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Issue 47, I'm not huge on this one. I don't necessarily mind the white background with Kraven in the middle, it's more all the different poses that Spider-Man's doing around him. It just feels like, oh, where are we going to put Spider-Man and how are we going to fill the gap? Let's just have him doing loads of stuff. For that reason, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good, it should be one Spider-Man maybe like punching Kraven or something. I don't know. Yeah, 7 out of 10. Issue 48. After a few misses, we've got another 10 out of 10. I love this one. The Vulture's back and Spidey's got him. Spidey's seeing him flying towards him. I like how you can't see Vulture's face. It's sort of from him flying in to attack Spider-Man. You see all of New York below them. Great piece of art. Easy 10 out of 10. Issue 49, continuing the story on from the previous issue, Vulture's still here, but he's teamed up with Kraven. I really like how Kraven's holding Spider-Man back while Vulture just punches him in the face. You name it, this one's got it. That's great. I also like the sort of jungle-ish tree they've got on, and the blue in the background's got a nice gradient, so another 10 out of 10. Issue 50, we are now at the halfway point of the 1 to 100 issues. This is a real landmark issue, and I forgot about this one. I mean, just look at that. Easy 10 out of 10. Not only is it like one of the best Spider-Man stories from this era, but that cover is just fantastic. Very much like issue 33, all it needs is a bit of simple imagery and Spider-Man no more. Fantastic cover. That's the type of cover you want framed. Easy 10 out of 10. Issue 51, again, I really like this one. I really like how you've got the yellow ground that sort of fades out into black. Spider like surrounded by Kingpin and his goons. He's down on the ground, in the clutches of the Kingpin. Yeah, this is interesting. This would easily grab my attention. I'm not sure if I'm going to give it 10 out of 10. No, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Issue 52, like issue 33 and issue 50, very simple, good image with just a very simple title, To Die a Hero. I really, really like this cover. J. Jonah Jameson looks terrified, Spider-Man's out for the count, filling up with water once again. The red brick background mixed with the blue like water, I think pops really nicely. That's a fantastic cover, 10 out of 10. Issue 53, another 10 out of 10 cover. I'll be quick with this one, just look at it. That's great. Doc Ock, enough said. Couldn't put it better myself. 10 out of 10. Issue 54, and this is just John Romita on a hot streak. Another 10 out of 10. Doc Ock running away, bashing through the wall. Spider-Man looks angry as he holds Aunt May. It's quite rare you get Aunt May on the front cover. I don't think we've seen her much. Yeah, I really like this one. 10 out of 10. Issue 55, and you've guessed it, another 10 out of 10. I know I keep giving 10 out of 10s, but I do think all these covers are near perfect, and this is no exception. If I had to move the others down to 9 out of 10, this would still be a 10 out of 10. I just really like the simplicity of a close-up on Doc Ock, and you can see Spider-Man being grabbed by his tentacles and his goggles. Simple, effective. Doc Ock wins, grabs the attention. Very, very easy 10 out of 10. Issue 56, at this point you might be saying, Jack, you can't keep giving 10 out of 10, that just ruins the whole list. Don't care, my list. I absolutely love the fact they've used a Daily Bugle to share the information of Spidey joins Doc Ock, and because it's on the yellow background, I don't mind the yellow background, I've got lots of web so it's not too distracting. And also you've got Spider-Man and Doc Ock, they're teaming up. I can't actually remember this issue too well. I think they do team up, but it's for good reasons or something, I don't know. It's a good cover though, so yeah, 10 out of 10. Issue 57, and it's about time we had one that wasn't 10 out of 10, so there you go. I do like this cover though, I think it's pretty good. Even though I'm not a huge fan of Kazar, I think it's just a little bit dull. I quite like how Kazar's jumping in, you've got the saber-tooth cat or whatever it's called, jumping in from the right. I just wish the colour in the background was a bit better. I think it needs a blue sky, and the city below needs a bit more detail. So for that reason, I'm going to give this one a 8 out of 10. Issue 58, another good cover. I wouldn't quite give this one a 10 out of 10 either. I do like J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider Slayer machine, or like transmitting his face onto it. I think the 2 Killer Spider-Man thing looks a bit odd, but I do like the wow, look who's back, that's quite funny. And I think the red background as he's sort of ripping through the dark blue metal looks pretty striking. So for that reason, 8 out of 10. Issue 59, and John is back with another 10 out of 10. I really like this one. I think it's quite cool how you got Mary Jane on the right. I think that's the first time she appears on a cover. And on the left you got Spider-Man fighting some goons with the blue background. I think this pops really nicely, it catches the attention, so yeah, I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10. Issue 60 sees the return of the Kingpin, and I do quite like this cover. I think it's pretty good. I like how Kingpin's just sort of throwing Spider-Man around, who just looks a bit startled. I'm not huge on the black background here. I think you could maybe have replaced that with something better, but that's quite a small critique, so for that reason, Obit of Victory gets a 9 out of 10. Issue 61, and we're back to the yellow background, which, as you know, I just don't like, and I don't think it helps this cover. However, everything else is pretty great. I sort of love how there's a massive metal vat about to fall on Gwen and Captain Stacy. It's just a bit too ridiculous, but Oh What a Tangled Web We Weave is also quite a cool title, so for that reason, I'm still going to give this one a 8 out of 10. Issue 62, and I'm not too fond of this one. It might be because we've just had so many good ones in a row, but this I find just quite boring. I don't like the white background. I don't think the action with Medusa holding down Spider-Man is particularly compelling. It's fine, so I'm going to give it like a 5 out of 10. Issue 63, and it's another slightly weaker one. I like what they're going for here, you know, you've got the two different vultures and the spider lights all shining on them. I just don't think it's the best way you could have done it. I think I would have preferred like Spider-Man swinging through New York and being attacked by both the vultures at the same time. But it's still okay, so 7 out of 10. Issue 64, slight improvement on the last issue, closer to what I was hoping for with Spider-Man fighting Vulture in the sky. I'm just not sure on the background for this one. It looks like it might be like a stylistic choice, but I'm just not sure it's one that works. But it still does look pretty good, so I'm going to go over 8 out of 10. Issue 65, and we're back with another 10 out of 10. This is a great cover. This is like one of the best we've seen. I like how Spider-Man's like running across the wall as all the prison guards chase him. Escape impossible. Really simple, really effective, and a good use of yellow. Yeah, this one gets an easy 10 out of 10. Issue 66, and I really like this one. I've always liked Mysterio. The title, the madness of Mysterio is great. I like how he's standing there pointing at Spider-Man and he just sort of hangs there. I'm not huge on the white background, so maybe for that reason I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10. I also like retailers. See page 32 for special display allowance plan. Very interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to give this one a 10 out of 10, but a solid 9 out of 10. Issue 67, I do quite like this one. I just think it's missing the fishbowl head of Mysterio on the left there. I think if it had that, it'd be an easy 10 out of 10. Otherwise, I really like it. I think it's simple and effective. If I'm remembering correctly, this issue, Spider-Man gets like shrunk down into like a mini theme park or something, and you can sort of gain that from the cover art. So yeah, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. I'm also not too huge on the black and white in the background, so yeah, 8 out of 10. Issue 68, and I really like this cover. I think Crisis on Campus is a good title. I really like how Spider-Man's swinging over all the protesters. I might be remembering incorrectly, but this might be the issue where it's a bit weird because Spider-Man sees all the protesters and sort of has a go at them, and it's a little bit out of character for him. But that's sort of unrelated. The cover itself is pretty good. I just wish it wasn't on the white background, but I guess a blue sky might sort of clash with the blue background that the protesters have. So yeah, I'm going to go with a solid 9 out of 10 for that one. Issue 69, and I think we've got another good one on our hands. I quite like this cover. It's quite simple, but yeah, it really works. You've got Kingpin sort of holding Spider-Man, holding him down. Mission crush the Kingpin, and Kingpin's even got one of those weird little cigarette holders, which I think is a nice detail. And again, you've got the Amazing Spider-Man on the black background at the top, which I really like. So yeah, even though it's not necessarily the most exciting cover, I'm going to give that a 10 out of 10. Issue 70. For a lot of covers, I've said, oh, this could be really good framed. I used to have this one framed in my room for like quite a few years. I think I got it for my birthday one year. And yeah, this is one that you could have framed. It's a really, really good cover. Really simple, really effective. I like the use of colour. Again, it's using yellow, but it's using it right. And Spider-Man Wanted is a good title, so I'm going to go over 10 out of 10 for this one. A bit nostalgic for me. Issue 71, and we've got another 10 out of 10. I really like this one. I like how they got Quicksilver running around Spider-Man, just punching them all over. Yeah, it's just really simple and effective. I don't think there's much more to say on it. 10 out of 10. Issue 72, and I do like this cover a lot, but I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. I think it's a little bit too simple. I know I keep saying like a lot of the good ones are simple, but this is not simple in a 10 out of 10 way, if that makes sense. But I do really like Rocked by the Shocker. Fantastic title. So I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. It's still very striking, still catches the eye, so yeah, 8 out of 10. I'm not a huge fan of issue 73. Again, the white background I think works here, and Man Mountain Marco I don't think is exactly the most interesting villain. I do quite like how he's sort of like pulling Spider-Man up, and you can see it's almost taking his upper half of his costume up. That's like a nice detail. But apart from that, there's not much about this that like really captures my attention, so I'm going to go for an honest 6 out of 10. Issue 74, and while this isn't my favourite, I can see what they're going for. They're trying to do something a bit different, and I think for the most part it does work. I'm just not huge on this blue background. I think I'd maybe change that a little bit, but I do quite like how you've got him in the background drinking the formula with the tablet in his hand while Spider-Man's like punching down some goons. So yeah, I'm going to go for like a strong 8 out of 10. We are now at issue 75, so we're now 3/4 of the way through, and we've got a 10 out of 10 here. I really like this cover. Death Without Warning is a great title. Spider-Man walking away with head in shame, and you can't see who's died. Very intriguing, makes me want to pick up the issue and read it. I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10. Issue 76, The Lizard Lives. We've got another 10 out of 10 on our hands. John could be on another hot streak at the moment. I really like this cover. Lizard punching Spider-Man down to the street. I really like the colorization on this one. I think it really pops, looks really good. Yeah, simple 10 out of 10. Issue 77, we've got another good cover on our hands. I really like the Human Torch returning, flying through the middle of the page. You've also got the lizard down below sort of swiping at him as Spider-Man shoots some webs around the Human Torch. Really interesting, quite exciting. I like the green and red for the Amazing Spider-Man font. That's only a solid 9 out of 10. Issue 78, and we've got the Night of the Prowler. I believe this is when they first introduced this character. Yeah, this is a pretty strong cover. I really like the gradient in the background. I think Prowler looks quite threatening and Spider has to dodge out of the way from his whatever he's shooting. Yeah, I really like this one. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it's missing a slight bit more excitement. So yeah, 9 out of 10. Issue 79, and we've got another strong Prowler issue. I really like this one, probably more than the last one. Peter being thrown out the window by the Prowler as J. Jonah Jameson looks on in fear is pretty great. I'm not huge on the "to prowl no more" being on the Spider-Man face, but I'm willing to look past that because I do think it's quite a fun cover. So I'm not going to go 10, I'm going to go 9.5. Issue number 80, and you might remember from earlier in the video, about like, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, that I mentioned the Chameleon is not one of my favourite villains. I don't find it as interesting as everyone else seems to, but this is a great cover. I love the use of green for the background and the fact the Chameleon's sort of glowing and he looks very eerie in the background. Pair that with everyone sort of grabbing at Spider-Man as he swings through with a spider sense going off. Yeah, 10 out of 10 cover. Issue 81, and we have the Kangaroo. Probably not one of Spider-Man's most famous villains, and certainly not one that I remember much about, apart from that he can jump like a kangaroo. But this is a really good cover, I think. It's quite rare you see Spider-Man down the streets. I think it's done quite well, it's quite well composed. Quite like the use of colour. Yeah, I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. Issue 82, and this is fantastic. This is what I wanted from the original Electro cover. He looks great, Spider-Man looks great, it's action-packed, you've got everyone running around, it's set in the TV studio. It stands out, it's memorable, easy 10 out of 10. Fantastic cover. Issue 83, and we've got another 10 out of 10 on our hands. I really like this one. I can't remember this issue or who the schemer is, but this cover's making me want to read it again. It's full of action, it's quite colourful, well composed. I like the gunshot that's just missing Spidey's arm. Yeah, I like this one a lot. I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10 too. We're now on to issue 84, where the artist has changed again. It is now John Buscema. I probably pronounced that wrong, so I'm not going to try again. And for his first issue, he's knocked out of the park, 10 out of 10. This is fantastic. I love how King can yanking this tarp or carpet away and it's just sending everything tumbling. Spider-Man's going flying. Great use of colour. Really like this one. 10 out of 10. I hope he continues this way. Issue 85, and we've got the Kingpin once again, joined by the Schemer and Vanessa. I quite like this cover as well. I think it's very well composed once again. I think this is the first time, at least the first time in a while, we've seen a speech bubble on the cover. I'm not against it. I think it works very well. What is the Schemer's secret? Probably the greatest comic magazine surprise of the year. Now, again, I read this one probably like 2 years ago, but I don't remember what that was, so that's a bit of a false claim. So, for the false claim, it's going to get a 9 out of 10. Sorry, Stan and John. Issue 86, and we've got another strong cover here. I quite like this one. I like how Black Widow's silhouette is being cast onto the wall, and you got Spider-Man saying, "How can I fight her? She's a female copy of myself." I think having these speech bubbles can be quite good at giving a little bit more information for the covers without it being too distracting. I think as long as they're not too long, it works quite well. And I also like the detail at the bottom right. You can see a bit more of the city, you can see all the police lining up. So yeah, I think I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. This one's good. Issue 87 I'm a bit torn on. I quite like the Spider-Man standing there as Peter reveals that he's Spider-Man. But I think this could have taken note from issue 33, issue 50, issue 53 I believe it was, where there's a bit too much text on the screen. I know they're starting to incorporate the text bubbles onto the cover, but I think for this one it would have been better if it was just the imagery and maybe just unmasked at last. For that reason I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10. Issue 88, and I think we're starting to notice a pattern here that I'm not a huge fan of, where I think it's getting a bit too cluttered now. I think if it was just the arms of Dr. Octopus attacking Spider-Man with the green bubble, you see the Rampaging Return of Spider-Man's deadliest foe, that would have worked better. I think with the no matter what I do, there's no way to stop the living tentacles, it's a little bit too much information, and I think the like dust cloud has got maybe a bit too much detail for my liking, especially mixed with all the people below. Having said that, it's still quite a good piece of art, so I think I'm still going to rank it quite highly. I also love this story because it's just Dr. Octopus's tentacles going crazy by themselves. So I'm still going to give this an 8 out of 10. We now have issue 89 where John Romita is left, and we now have Gil Kane, and I'm not going to lie, I don't really like this cover. If you remember everything I've been saying throughout this video, I don't like the use of yellow. I don't like it when it's a multiple panel cover. While the action is pretty good, I think if you just took one of these panels and made them the whole cover, it would work better. So for that reason, it's still quite good. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's just not for me. We are now on issue 90, only 10 more to go, and I was a little bit unsure if I was going to gel with Gil Kane's sort of art style, but this proves that no, he can do some pretty good covers. I think the only thing I don't like about this is the white background for the floor. I think if he just drew some like roads, I would prefer it a lot more. So I still quite like it. I like Spider-Man the Killer, and you can't see who's dead, and he's sort of running up the street with him. Everyone's saying, oh, Spider-Man did it, he's a murderer. So I'm still going to give it a 9 out of 10. It could have been a 10 out of 10 though, with just a little bit of road. Issue 91, and we've got a pretty good cover here. I like quite a lot of this. I like the spider symbol on the wall. I like Spider-Man standing there while everyone's watching him. You've got all his supporting cast there. But I think maybe it is a bit cluttered, and while I see what they're going for with the shading on the bricks, I think there's a little bit too much detail for a cover. For that reason, plus it's got the white floor again, which I'm just not a fan of, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. It's good, but it's not 10 out of 10 worthy. Issue 92, and there's certainly a trend with Gil Kane where all of his covers are pretty good, but there's just a few things that I don't like about them that stop them from being 10 out of 10s. So again, yellow background, said enough about that, and I think the rooftops look weird with the yellow. Other than that, I think it's pretty strong. Again, maybe a little bit too much going on, like literally everyone in New York is watching. But apart from that, it's pretty good. I like the Iceman chasing down Spider-Man trying to save Gwen Stacy, and he's shot a shard of ice through the web. Pretty exciting stuff. So again, another 8 out of 10, but it could have been a 10. Here we have issue 93, and you probably know what I'm going to say. I don't like the use of yellow. I know what they're going for with the elevator shaft being lit up by a yellow light, and that's how lights were back then, I guess, but I just find it so distracting. I don't think it looks very nice. But Prowler looks pretty cool. I like how he's kicking Spider-Man down the shaft. I do think the green text that says all the way when Spidey tackles is a little bit hard to read as well, so another 8 out of 10. Issue 94, I'm not a huge fan. Again, a lot of use of yellow, and I don't like when they split the cover, especially when it's to advertise Spidey's origin retold. When I'm reading these comics, back to back, it's so annoying when they spend so long just doing Spider-Man's origin again. They do it so often. So the fact that annoying. Annoying. The Beetle looks pretty cool though, and always get points having Aunt May on the cover. Saying all that, 7 out of 10? No, 6 out of 10. We have issue 95 here, and I have a general rule for the MCU, which is if it features London or England, it immediately gets some points. Same goes for comic covers. This gets a 10 out of 10 just for being Spidey fights in London. Look at that. Fantastic. It's also a great piece of art. Like, it's well coloured, it's got good composition. I love how Spider-Man's sort of jumping into frame. The hostage must die. Fantastic cover. Easily this guy's best. 10 out of 10. Issue 96, only 5 more to go. I wouldn't give this a 10 out of 10. I think it's going to be sort of mid-range just because I'm not huge on like the grey sky. I don't like the shading on like the police officer's face, and I don't like this side strip which gives you a bit more information about the issue. I understand that could be quite useful, but I like my covers just to sell the issue on its own. So for that reason, I was going to give it a 7 out of 10, but they've not done an awful garish yellow for the light, so I'm going to make it an 8 out of 10 just to be fair. Issue 97, and after cutting them some slack for using the correct yellow, they've gone and used the awful garish yellow again, so that's quite distracting. It's the first thing that grabs my attention. Otherwise, it's a pretty strong issue cover. I don't like the white walls necessarily, but Spider-Man sort of grabbing Green Goblin like chokehold as he tries to zoom past. That's pretty fun. I do think the cloud texture, like the smoke left from the Goblin's glider, looks a bit different, a bit distracting. So keeping all that in mind, I'm going to go with like a 7.5. Issue 98 is a very strong cover. I like this one a lot. It hasn't got the garish yellow, it's still a yellow, but I think it works. And I love the detail of Spider-Man trying to get a grip, but he's literally tearing into the wall. I think it's pretty good. I like the use of the red text as well for like losing your grip, Spider-Man. That's my Green Goblin voice. So yeah, I like this one a lot. I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. This one's solid. Issue 99, I'm not sure what's up with this one. I don't know if it's some sort of crossover event or some sort of... Maybe it is because it's the 99th issue. I don't like it. I don't think it looks very good. It's just all the Avengers plus Spider-Man running towards the reader with a weird green background. It's very stylized. I can see what they're going for, but I think it's just a bit like... I think it just sort of stands out against all the other covers. And he signed this one, so I don't know. I'm going to give this one like a 3 out of 10. Lowest in a while. And we've done it. Issue 100. I've literally recorded all of these back to back. It's taken me like 4.5 hours, so I'm quite glad to be at the end, and I'm even more glad that it's a great issue cover to end on. I love this issue cover. I like how it has all the people in the background silhouetted, the spider or the man. Spider-Man looks great. A very nice use of the yellow, I must say. And I like the banner. It's like, at last, the greatest long-awaited 100th anniversary issue with the wildest shock ending of all time. pretty fantastic. The only small gripe I'd have is there's 2 Mary Janes for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. There might be a reason, but that just seems a bit odd to me. For issue 100, we're going with a strong 10 out of 10. And that is the video. I can't believe I've just sat down and reviewed the Amazing Spider-Man issues 1 to 100 covers. That was quite a lot of fun. It's taken me a very, very long time. To think that I'd originally planned to do 899, obviously not in one sitting, but in one video is absurd now that I see the length of this one, but I'm glad I did it. I hope anyone who's watched this has enjoyed, and if I can find a spare weekend again, I might do issues 101 to 200. It'd be pretty fun to do them all the way through, but that is going to take a very long time. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. Go watch some Spider-Man or read some Spider-Man comics. I'm sure you will not regret it. Or go see Spider-Verse. That's pretty good. Yeah, I haven't got much else to say. I'm going to go make some food and then edit this video. So thanks for watching. See you in a bit.